Okay. What's up, everybody? I hope everybody's having a great day. What's up? What's up? What's up? Tonight we're having Ryan on. He's going to tell a story. So you guys come on in, share the video, like the video, and invite your friends. Share the video, like the video, and invite your friends. I have been chilling today. I had a hard time yesterday. Wasn't feeling that great. Had a nervous breakdown last night. But I'm okay now. I just got to make some changes in my life so I can get healthy because I feel like crap. But the show must go on. So y'all come on in. Ryan's going to come. I'm just waiting for him to go live so I can send him an invite. There he is. Okay. What up?
Hey Nicole, what's up?
Nothing. What are you doing? Are you having a good day today?
I'm having it's been alright, but it's been a day.
That's how
So
my
it's my
day was
last,
yesterday. Huh?
yeah, it's my last, so today's my Friday because I took Friday off. So today's my weekend, started my weekend. So I was a little anxious about starting it, caused me to get, how it is, like a little frustrated, ready for the weekend to start.
I'm excited to hear your story. Okay. So this is how we do it. It's kind of like the way they do it in a regular meeting, but
Uh-huh.
it's a little bit different. So what I like for you to do is like share with us what it was like when you were a kid. Like, how was your family structure? What was it like when you were in school? Did you get made fun of? Were you on the basketball team? Were your parents abusive? Are they still married? That kind of thing. And then transition us into like when you started using drugs the first time. I always like to know about the first time you ever used and what was it like.
Okay.
How did it make you feel? Were you hooked right at the beginning? And then after you take us through that, then I want you to share with us how you got sober and what your life is like today. If I have any questions or anything like that, I always just butt in or like wait until you pause and then I'll ask you or something like that. But for the most part, you have the floor. You take over and it's all you.
All right, so look, my story is like pretty much like everything you just said is how I tell it anyway. So something happens and you feel like I'm not touching on something, that's fine, you can stop me. But like if I try to think about all that shit you just told me, I'll fuck myself up. And I ain't thought much about what I was gonna say at all. I don't do that because I feel like it's pure if I just, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so yeah, thank you again, Nicole. God, I guess all right. So I guess where do I start? I mean, dude, I've been an addict long before I ever, picked up any type of substance. I believe, and really, especially with this new trauma shit they've been talking about, I kind of look back at all of that stuff. You know, um, very early on in my house, I had a pretty traumatic upbringing. Not in the sense that it was like it's any type of sexual assault or anything like that, but there was just a lot of like emotional abuse, a lot of control, a lot of intimidation, a lot of argument. Um, some minimal domestic violence. I don't want to say I was abused because I don't think I was necessarily. I got beat up a couple times by my dad, but mostly he just spanked me, and that wasn't. I
Yeah.
deserved that shit. I deserved it most of the time. So, um, but anyway, I was always I excelled at a young age scholastically. I grew up in the city of Richmond, and back then the school system in Richmond didn't have a program for accelerated kids, so they identified me like that at like the first grade, and so we moved like a mile away, just inside the county, so I could go to county school. And so let me back up too. I got an older brother and a younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom and dad. My mom is an addict. Um, my dad and mom both used to get high. My dad used to sell drugs, but he
Really? See, I didn't know that. That's what I want to hear about. I want to know about what was it like growing up in the household with two parents who struggled with addiction. Talk to us about that.
they didn't. By the time they had me, that shit wasn't happening.
Okay. Okay.
So my dad got caught with distribution of drugs and he beat the case on a technicality. Long story, but he was facing a lot of time to beat the case and he just stopped. And then my mom, her addiction transferred to like alcohol a little bit, but she hit it really well. And then, my parents got divorced, which that was the big traumatic thing for me was mental health trauma in my household. And so I'll get to that, but so I had an older brother, younger sister. My brother was really good at everything. He was good looking, you know what I mean? Like way better looking than me.
So
and
was my sister. My middle sister
he,
was so much hotter than me, and I used to always feel kind of like jealous almost, you know?
yeah, I mean, listen, like, and so I was trying to get off track, but like, so just to give you a little bit of like trauma, you know what I'm saying? Which is it's kind of funny, but it's traumatic to me as a kid. Like the first kiss I ever got was from a girl that was trying to get to my brother to me through me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
And so like it set the stage for this whole idea in my head of like people don't really fuck with me. They just want me to get to my brother or because I'm good at this and I can, you know what I mean? And so it just set the
Yeah.
stage for that type of I'm not good enough type thinking, you know what I mean? And so anyway, growing up like that, my brother was really good at sports too. I loved that my brother was good at sports because it made me try to be good too, and I was good at sports. Um, but my brother was also like a pretty good leader. Like he didn't like abuse me like some brothers and shit. Like be mean. Like my brother was super cool, dude. Like always loving. Like yeah, I could depend on my brother even to
Yeah.
this day. You know what I'm saying? Like it's never been like any type of him treat me like shit. You know what I mean? That's probably been the opposite, other way around. My younger sister always looked up to me, and I was a leader amongst my peers. You know what I mean? My brother was amongst his, my sister was amongst hers. We just come from a family of that shit. And my parents are both real personable, so we're just personable people.
Yeah.
And then we were good at sports, and just we have that, whatever that thing is, and I don't, we were kind of like I guess popular kids. A lot of friends hung out, at our house, and it was a good environment. It wasn't a bad house to grow up in socially. But when the lights went out at night and after dinner, sometimes at the dinner table, my dad would snap the fuck out, or put his hands on my mama sometimes, or my room was right by their room. Like my brothers was downstairs and my sisters were beside me, so I always felt like I had to protect her. So when I would wake up to them arguing, I would go in there and get in the middle of that shit and try to protect her from everything.
Yeah.
And so I had that type of instinct too. Um, but then what that exposed me to was their arguments. So like, at a young age, I'm like, and then I start thinking it's me because I'm in trouble all the time. Because even at a young age, I was always in trouble. My mom always took up for me. And and so I started thinking that's it's me, and I'm the problem. And then um, when I was, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. I can imagine like feeling like you need to stick up for your mom and feeling like, you're kind of like the man of the house where you got to go in there and protect your mom from your dad, and that's hard to go through. I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine that.
Well, yeah. So my mom tried to kill herself when I was like 13, and I found her. You know what I mean? And that shit was crazy. But what it set the stage for was my mom to get away from my dad, which was a good thing, um, and for them to get to split up. But you know, I was in trouble. I was a problem kid, so it was like I thought it was my fault. You know what I mean? And like I was once again when this stuff happened, I was the one that my brother wasn't there. My sister, I didn't want to expose her, so I'm trying to protect her. And like me and my dad drove my mom to the hospital. You know what I mean? I was 13 years old, and I had a big get in trouble and shit already. I was a lot of the shit in the household was my fault. Like a lot of the arguments, I was just in trouble all the time. And. But anyway,
Wait a
so
second.
that
It's
happened.
not your fault though, because you were a kid and it's your parents' job to parent you. That wasn't your fault. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
you're
You
right.
thought it was, but it wasn't. I just want you to know that.
I know. And so, growing up with that shit, and then also, like in the neighborhood, like I very quickly became like the kid that people's parents didn't want them to be with because I was gonna get them into trouble. And so, I remember we got caught smoking cigarettes when I was like 10. I had the whole neighborhood smoking cigarettes, and I was the youngest one. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And they were like, somehow it was my fault, and I was the youngest one. You know? And so the funny thing about that is that like I had good leadership skills even then. You know what I mean? But I was led the
Leaving
wrong
with
way.
cigarettes.
You know, I could get people. I'm very persuasive, and I get people. People tend to follow me into things sometimes, and back then it wasn't ever good things. Today it is, um, but anyway, so that's how I grew up. A lot of trouble, and then I started, trying to separate myself from my brother. Once I hit adolescence, and it was like, you hit the adolescent teen years, and then it's like, okay, I want my own identity now. Like I don't want to be little Chris no more. You know what I mean? And so he was such a good kid, good guy. Everybody loved him, very popular. When in high school he was the prom king and all that shit. You know what I mean? And so it was like, um, I set my own identity, and so you know, I got intrigued with the counterculture as they call it. You know what I mean? And in my area, the counterculture was like hip hop music, but also like I was like a mix of all that shit. And I was like just into shit. Gangster rap music, smoking weed. Snoop Dogg had just came out. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
all that whole scene. And anyway, so I grew up with like that or whatever. And I can remember. So I'm getting to the first time I smoked weed.
Okay.
Um, so it was right around the time my parents were going through all this shit, and I think my mom had left, and I was headed that way anyway. I was gonna smoke weed anyway. Like I never was scared of drugs, but anyway, me and my buddy went over to a friend's house, and we had helped him cut grass. An older head, he was like 15, we were like 13 or 14. He might have been 16. But anyway, he's like, "I'll come over, I'll smoke y'all out." So we went over there. Just back when we used to sneak out of houses. I don't know if they still do, but we used to sneak out and walk long ways, like mile ways and shit. And we walked in the neighborhood when we smoked, and I remember, man, like when we left and we're walking home, and we were so high, giggly and shit. And I remember, like, we said to each other, we were like, bro, we should have been doing this shit, man.
Right. Right.
Like, those were the exact words. And, like, bro, we should have been doing this shit. And so that's what we proceeded to do. You know what I mean? And look, that whole summer, like, it was my summer before eighth or ninth grade, I can't remember. And we just smoked weed all summer. And I want the person that was, like, scared of, like drugs. So I tried weed, and very shortly after that, I tried, and I always used addictively. You know what I mean, from the
Yeah.
beginning. Like it was like, as soon as I used, I just want more. If I could have stayed high from the beginning, like I was selling weed at like in the ninth grade. You know what I mean, to support
Yeah.
my weed habit. And so and so anyway, yeah. So but then I tried acid very quickly after that, and then that like was like a very spiritual thing for me, and it
Acid
like connect.
right after
Yeah,
weed. Damn. You just graduated
yeah.
right up there.
Oh, quickly. And I always hung out with older people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like literally. So it was like it was around. And and I jumped up in there, and I loved it. It connected me with like this. I still to this day am a fan of psychedelics, to be honest with you. But I got too much going on for that shit. But anyway, but I loved it back then. And so then what I thought was, these motherfuckers are lying to us about this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't want. There's something they don't want us to know. so I proceeded to find out whatever that was that I didn't know about, that they were trying to keep from me. And yeah, and so like it wasn't long. I was putting coke on my weed. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying. And my
Yeah.
next door neighbor was a crackhead, and we used to put crack on blunts and shit when I was like 14 years old. And so my
What
disease
was it
progressed
like
real quick.
being 14 smoking a blunt with crack in it? Like, didn't it make you nervous when your heart started beating real fast? Or did you feel like uneasy or anything like that? Or were you like, this is it? I love it?
If I'm honest, I didn't really like the crack blunts as much as I just like regular weed. But when I think back to that time, I was already at the point where I was smoking so much weed that it was like I was looking for something else,
Right.
just because I
Okay.
wanted to feel something else anyway. So I didn't really like the crack feeling necessarily, but it felt different. And at
Yeah.
this point, like, so So let me say this. Once we started doing that, there was a small group of us that started doing this, and smoking crack on the weed. So it's not cool to be smoking crack when you're 14, 15 years old. Your friends
Not at
find out that you smoke
all.
crack. Yeah. So very early on, I began to experience some social consequences as a result of my addiction. In my group for friends um, and all of that. And remember, I told you back that I had those feelings that people didn't really fuck with me anyway, and all this and that. So that shit just confirmed it, and confirmed more of it. And you know, and so that just those thoughts kept getting fed into my head. People don't really fuck with me, and then it was showing in my circle, and people started talking, gossiping about me, and then eventually me and my group of friends, I found friends that were using like me, and all us kind of went, and did our thing. And so I got to say this too, because I got to add this to this part, right? Because a huge part of my story is institutionalization and like criminality. Because at a very young age, I was locked up at 14 years old, and from then on, I I
What did
went to
you get locked
jail.
up for at 14? What
I
happened?
stole a car when I was 13, and they didn't take me to jail for that, but they put me on probation, and because it was my first offense. And then I got caught with weed at school. They knew I was selling weed, but they couldn't catch me, and then they caught me like a couple days before the end of my ninth grade year, and so they charged me for that. And then
Who put you
then
up
I
to
got
stealing that car? Who put you up to that? What happened? Did something happen? Did some of your friends say, "Hey, let's go steal this car," or did you get the bright idea you were going to steal the car?
so look, the dude that put me up to it is right here. It was me. Dude, I was bad, man. I was bad. I was bad. I'm telling you, I was bad. And so, anyway, and so what happened with that was my mom. Me and a group of our friends used to all steal our parents' cars at night, right? And over the summer, and my mom, I told you, my mom was fucked up. So my mom had really bad depression too, and she used to sleep all day. So I got the bright idea I was gonna steal her car one day during the day, because we were getting away with that shit all summer, all of us, and never got caught. And then I decided I was gonna take her car during the day, and then I got tore off for it. Cause
Oh man.
there was trash can day in the neighborhood, and they were all lined up. So me and my buddy were like, let's just ram them bitches. And so that's what we did, and then it's like called the police. So I know it's crazy, but so anyway, uh,
Y'all
what's
were
up,
just
life?
badass kids. That's what y'all were.
We
Y'all were just bad.
Yeah, and then I found kids just like me, my whole group of friends, man. And one thing about me, like I'm a loyal dude. I always had a lot of friends, and me and my friends rode together. Even to this day, if you my friend, I fuck with you. You see me, Nicole, how I carry.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
like that. I mean it. You know what I mean? When I care about somebody, I'm like that with them. So that's a good thing I developed through all of this shit. But so anyway, I started getting locked up young. I always got to tell this story because it's important, a part of my story, right? Because I always been wearing a mask my whole life. I've been trying to be somebody I wasn't, or either like be somebody I am, but like to a bigger degree. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, because I always felt like I've always been the leader, but I've always felt like the people that I felt like I was leading expected me to behave a certain way.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so like I had to always, what I mean, do whatever, And so anyway, I remember walking when I first got locked up in the detention home the first time. I was leaving from court, right? And and it was walking me down this long ass hallway, bro. And it was the first time I ever smelt that jail soap smell, that
Oh
Lisa
God.
soap motherfucking smell. And I smelled that shit, and I didn't know what it was, but I remember that smell. And I walked down the hallway, and I was scared as a bitch. I think I was 13 years old. I wasn't even 14 yet. I don't think. And when I went in there, they took us in the intake room, and I was in that bitch scared as a motherfucker, bro. And then they opened up the door, and I saw one of my homeboys that I looked up to. But see, all the older heads used to fuck with me, but like, you know what I mean. So when I saw him, he seen me, and it was like he was kind of running the show in there. So then I went in there, and he took me under his wing, and it was like then we was having fun. And
Yeah.
then it was like getting locked up was like no longer a deterrent for me from day one. And then like as I got older, me and all my friends started getting locked up. So it was like, dude, there was times when I was in the detention home with like five of my closest friends. You know what I mean? And we were in there hanging. One of my best friend that got me in the house I'm living in right now, that lives a mile from me, we were detention home cellmates when we were kids. You know what
Oh
I'm saying?
wow.
Like we've been doing this shit together forever. but but anyway, but when I came in that time, I remember how scared I was. It was the first time I was face to face with that person that I was pretending to be, right? Because I really was scared. You know what I mean? But I was acting like I won't, but and so it was like the first time that there was this conflict within me of like, you ain't really who the fuck you say you was. And then and then guess what that started doing? Telling me the same shit that I was telling myself for years with them other people. They don't
Yeah.
really fuck with you. Then I was telling you, you ain't shit for real anyway. You know what I mean? And so what that laid the foundation for was constant drug use. Let me tell you, my high school years, I was in trouble a lot. I somehow managed to graduate high school. I was really, really smart. I was in honors class all the way up until like the 10th grade. Um, and even with all my trouble, I went to a school for bad kids and all that shit. Even though I was really good at school, I didn't never have to study, which contributed terribly to my lack of a work ethic.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and that carried on into my adulthood, and now I have a great work ethic, but that hadn't always been the case. And so anyway, I did a lot of time as a juvenile. My drug addiction began to progress, and my parents were divorced, and my dad worked shift work, and he couldn't really control me, man. So their way of controlling me was to call the PO. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so like I was locked up for 27 different charges as a juvenile, and all of them were violations except for those first two. I never caught any more charges. I went to the Department of Juvenile Justice on violation, to
Damn.
prison, kid prison on violation for smoking weed, so and other drugs, and so and what that did was it continued to progress with my institutional mentality, and then I never developed any coping skills either, because when I was in there, they just tell you what to do and shit.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to have any self regulation. You know what I mean? In fact, like self regulation in there is bad as a juvenile. Let me tell you something. I've been to a lot of adult institutions. There ain't nothing worse than the Department of Juvenile Justice for kids. I'm telling you, you go to a state run juvenile facility, especially in near a big city, them kids is ruthless. They fight all the time. I mean, I fought almost every day in that motherfucker. I'm not even exaggerating.
You're a lot
It
like my
was
sister Michelle. My sister had to go to juvie a lot. And I've never been. I've never been. But I know that she tells me it was horrible. It was way worse than going to county jail any day.
any day. Oh, dude, way worse. Anybody that's ever been that was on here, they can co-sign that shit. Way worse, way worse. Because kids don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Kids don't have no type of compassion or empathy or anything for people. They're just ruthless. And a lot of them, some of them kids are like sociopaths and just ain't been identified yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so anyway, and so that was a real traumatic experience in and of itself. And I could talk about that for days, but just doing that was crazy. So you add more trauma, more drug use. It's just the cycle. So I turned 18. I get off paper, my 18th birthday. And at this point, I done graduated high school. I graduated when I was 17 still, even though I was locked up 2 years of my high school year, which
Wow.
is probably why I graduated. But anyway, and so then I'm getting high, me and all my friends, and I was tripping one night on acid, and I had some friends die from heroin and drug. Oh yeah, let me back up. So at this point I was smoked crack, and now I'm shooting dope. So I'm shooting heroin. So if you want me to tell you how that started, I can go back there. But like, I mean, we know how the fuck using goes. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it happened like it happened for everybody. You know what I mean? It didn't. I didn't want my group of friends. It was me. I went and sought that shit out. I wanted to get high. I like getting high. You know what I mean? And and so I had a friend die from a drug overdose. I had a couple of friends die in a car accident behind drinking, and I was tripping one night on acid. And my uncle and I was like, and I was always the last one awake too. By the way, you probably like that too, Nicole.
I
Everybody's
stay up all
sleeping, we be
night.
up.
I'll be up till 3 a.m. in the morning. Dude, I texted my boss last night, Dr. B, and he's like, Nicole,
Mhm.
it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Dude, listen, when I was on drugs, like I was always the last one up. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else would be to bed.
Yeah,
Even
same.
when and so I was up and I was thinking about life. I was tripping, of course, but I was like, man, I got to do something different because I've always had, for real, man, I've always had this inkling in my spirit that, man, that like I was destined for something better than what I was doing, you know.
Yep.
And I've always felt like that. And I've been leaders on sports teams and shit like that. And you know, I felt what it feels like to be victorious and to be a leader and to be in the lane where you're operating in a purpose, you know. But when I was doing all this shit, I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing this. And and so I tried my first geographical cure, is what I'm saying. My uncle called me in the morning. He was living in Florida. He said, come down to West Palm Beach. Well, actually, it was Port St. Lucie, and come stay with me. And so I did. And you know, it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks after being down there. I'm around the same people, just different faces. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Different names. And
Isn't
but
that crazy how we can go to a totally different city, town, state, and literally like plug into the same atmosphere, the same people, just like we left when we were running away from the place we ran away from, and we run right into
yeah,
the arms of the same people.
it's the law of attraction, man. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Because you're going to attract the type of people that you are. That's just what
Yeah.
it is, you know. And I'm aware of that today. And so, you know, but the good thing about being in Florida was I actually became independent for the first time. You know, I moved in out of my uncle with some guys. We ended up getting a house in West Palm Beach or Forest Hill Boulevard, I think it is. Yeah, Forest Hill, and down in Lake Worth. Super amazing. Had fun, man. But my addiction, once again, man, after being there a while, it was progressing and progressing and progressing. And the crack in Florida ain't no joke. And,
I
and
bet, because
so,
you're right there by you're by like Cuba, like you're right there on the water. So all that cocaine is coming over from those other countries and shit, you know?
mm,
So it's probably like super pure, man.
yeah, and so all that happened, you know, and then I got wrapped up in stuff there, and you know, and then I ended up running back home, and when I came back home, uh, within a couple of weeks of me being home, I was shooting heroin again and doing all this other shit, and you know, and I moved in with the family of one of my friends that had died from a heroin overdose, and you know, and I woke up one morning. I'll never forget this shit. I woke up one morning, and there was a Navy commercial on the TV, and I was at one of them moments of clarity, as they say, right, where I kind of woke up and I was like, man, this ain't where it's at, you know, and um, and so I ended up going down to the recruiter's office. Now it took me about 3 months to finally get recruited into the army because I couldn't pass the drug test, and
Right.
I had a pretty severe heroin habit at the time. And but anyway, so the way I got over that to get in was, and this is part of my spiritual path, right? My journey is, um, you know, to get over this. I told my dad, I said, Dad, don't let me. My dad has been, man, I love my fucking dad, dude. He gave me tough love, but he's always been there for me, man. But anyway, I said, Dad, don't let me out of the house. You know, I got to get to this army shit. So he kept to his word. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, these girls, these friends of mine, my friend Nikki and Michelle, they were like, why don't you help us do this Bible study class? And this also plays into me being a peer today too. They said, why don't you help us with this Bible study class? My dad said I could do it, so I went down there, and I didn't know much about Jesus or nothing, but I helped him do this Bible study class, and I had to learn this stuff, and I really made a connection with people on a spiritual level. It was like the first time I ever experienced a relationship with a higher power. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and also I got to doing that group. It was like I felt once again like I was in my purpose. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
kids responded well to me, you know, and all that. So I went to the military. I excelled in the military. I was an honor graduate, distinguished honor
Wow.
graduate, high PT, and all that stuff, and basic training, and you know, and then AIT. I was great, but you know why? Because that's another fucking institution, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, and there was tons of structure,
Yeah.
right? And it
Yeah.
was like I did well, you know, and but I was airborne. They sent us to Fort Benning, Georgia, and as soon as they let the rings up off us, man, I'm getting it fucking fucked up. I'm at the titty bar, you know, just crazy. It's craziness.
Yep.
And I'm lucky I made it out of there without getting in trouble. But I went back home, and when I came back home, look, I was at home for 30 days before I went overseas to Italy because that's where my duty station was, right? Where I was going from base airborne school to home to Italy. And within the 30 days of me being home, I overdosed. I was in 2 police raids. in people's houses. It was
Wow.
fucking crazy. Yeah, it
And
was
you got to go to
insanity.
Italy though?
I was in the army,
That is,
but the
I
people
know,
I
but
was,
that's so cool. Like, what was it like
yeah.
in Italy?
So that's what I'm getting to.
Okay, okay.
So I got to Italy, and I took me with me, and Italy was amazing. But I was so fucked up the whole time I couldn't tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a fact. Like, I got drunk the whole time I was there, and everywhere we went, I've been all over the fucking Europe, and I had some fun. Don't get me wrong, and I experienced some fun. But everywhere we went, it was like, where's the bar? You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't like, hey, where's the Eiffel Tower, or where's the, it was like, let's find the bar and go get fucked up, and then, you know, say we came to this place, whatever. So I went all over Europe. I had fun over there. While I was over there, I developed a heroin habit in Europe. I could find dope anywhere. You know what I mean? I didn't even speak Italian, but I figured it out where it was at. It was like a 30-minute train ride from where I was living at, and we would go out there and score. And so I ended up getting kicked out of the military, not for heroin. I didn't start doing that till I was already being pending to be a court martial, but I got caught for distribution of hash in the military, and
Damn.
that's I'm just glazing the surface of this because we ain't got a lot of time because I've been talking a lot, but like I did a whole lot of shit over there with drugs and stuff that I had no business doing, and they got me for distribution. They sent me to prison in Germany, Mannheim, Germany, the regional confinement facility, and I was locked up there for a year.
Wait a second. What was it like in Germany prison?
Um, so it was a military prison. So imagine like a prison, like a prison, like here that we go to, but it's much smaller. It was only like 60 people there, and it was like a blend of being in the military and being in prison, and you are still considered enlisted, so you couldn't buck. There wasn't no bucking. It was like being back in basic training for a year,
Oh,
and like
okay.
them just yelling at you and making you do push-ups and making you clean the floor and shit. Because if you buck, then they could court martial you and give you more time.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I stayed there for a year. Now that place I was at was like a holding facility for people that were getting shipped back. If you had like a rape or a murder or something that you had a lot of time, they would send you back. But I just had like a year. So I did my time. I got out. By the time I got out, I would have been getting out the army because I was a good soldier. But what happened is when I got to Italy, when I first got to Italy, when I was in process, and if you've ever known about in the military, when you go in, you in process for like 2 weeks, you don't get attached to your unit. You just in process. And so your unit don't really know you. And I got a drunk on duty and some other shit, and I just could never shake that tag. And so that's another story. But and so that's just it set the tone for me in the military. And then my best friend while I was there, his war trauma. About a month after me being there, my best friend got shot and killed back home. And so they wouldn't let me come home for the funeral because he wasn't my blood. And this was like my brother, like literally like my best friend. You know what I mean? And I used to dream at night. And then so my alcoholism began to take off and shit too in the military because of that, the trauma and just fucked up behind my friend dying. And so that's what caused me to get kicked out later and with the drugs and all that. And so then I come home from the military. They pick me up from prison. They take me to Frankfurt, Germany, and they put me on an airplane back home. And so now when I left, all my group of friends had all like really started getting into drug dealing. And when I came back home, one of them was dead and the other two were in prison. And so it was like, you know what I'm saying? I still had a lot of friends, but it was like everywhere I went, it was the beginning of my relationship with anxiety, right? Because like what happened is I started going out to drinking and shit, going out to the bars, and people had heard about what happened with me. What's up, Recovery Tribe? And people had heard about what happened with me. So like when I would go out, they would say, well, what happened? Like what's been going on? And then I'd have to repeat the story over. And I just was like, man, fuck this, man. And so I started having real bad anxiety about going out. And so I started staying in, and then I had a bunch of money because when I was in the military, they were supposed to take my pay, but they didn't. And so when they didn't, I diverted my money into an American bank account. And so when I came home, I had a lot of money, and and so I started getting high, man. I was living with my best friend that got killed, that I got tattooed on my arm right here. I was living with his mom and his sister, his two sisters, and she was on methadone, and God rest her soul, she's one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. But anyway, I was staying with her, and dude, I remember when she caught me getting high, like I was just shooting coke and dope like all day, and I remember she called me and she said, "Come here." I went in the back room and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You know what I'm doing." And she was like, she didn't even tell me to stop. She just said, "I love you," you know. And and so, I ended up trying to get help then, and I stopped, tried to stop. And like back then, I wasn't like a full blown addict in the sense that I could like start like stop getting high, shooting dope, and then start drinking a lot. You know what I'm saying? Or I
Hmm.
could like change one for another. I'm sorry.
You're making me
Change.
cry,
I'm
mother.
really emotional, man. Like I really
Me
do
too.
have like connection to my story. But and so uh and so anyway, man. She just loved me to death, man. And then I overdosed in my dad's house right when I got back from the military, and that's when he was like, "You gotta go. You can't come back here no more." And even like, and from that point, that was in 2003. And then I went to stay with Sandy. That was her name, and that's when all the addiction took off. And then in May of 2003, I had been home from prison like 2 months, and I got locked up in a Richmond City jail, which back then was a treacherous place. I mean, it was treacherous. And And so once again though, right, I'm this fucking badass, and I never really carried myself like a badass, but I carry myself like I've been locked up my whole life, so I know how to
Yeah.
carry myself to keep people away from me. Right, I know how to like present as that like you ain't just gonna push me around type shit. You know what I mean? And so and so that's how I kind of think I am. But then I walk in that city jail and I'm like, because like back then, they had uniforms. Everybody was in boxers and no shirts on, and bullet wounds and stab wounds everywhere. And it was this big dude that was like lifting this bucket up. I was like, "What the fuck am I doing?" Like, they go, bro.
Like
And
you
it
was
won't no
like in
cells,
Oz. You were in Oz. Remember
dude.
that?
Yes, and
That
it wasn't no
uniform?
cells. It was open tier, and it was like
Yeah.
130 some people in one tier, and there won't no deputy on staff either. They would come and lock the door and leave, and they would come around every 3 hours and walk around the catwalk. I seen people get killed in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like it was treacherous. But anyway, when I went in there, they when I went in there, they were like, of course, like I'm trying to get on the phone to make bonds. So I'm scared as a bitch, and I get on the phone finally, and I call them. I'm like, man, y'all got to get me out of here. It's crazy in here. They're gonna kill me. And then my parents, no, I was in the city jail. I ain't been to Greenville though. But anyway, and so uh, and so then I ended up staying there for like, I don't know, like 24 hours or so. But I eventually saw some people I knew. When you run the streets like that, you know people, So I seen some people I knew and linked up with them. And you make it swole and shit, all that, make a feast, whatever. And so then when I get out and make bond, I'm talking shit. I'm like, man, that joint was all right. You know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. So how about my ass? When I finally went to court for that shit like a month later, they gave me weekends, and my first weekend I was supposed to report. I got in a fight downtown, drunk, and ended up getting locked up and got violated on that shit and had to go do all that, and they locked me back up. And this time I was calling to get a bond, and my parents were like, "Oh no, that shit was all right last time." And so they never bonded me out ever after that, ever again. And so and because of my distribution charges in the military, they held me. I didn't have no bond, and so I stayed down there for all that time. And it's like 7 months or something like that. And yeah, it's crazy. So and then and listen, from that point on, from 2003 to 2013, 12, 11, 13, something like that, I spent the majority of my time in the city jail. I would come home for a month or two. Like one time I got out of jail, the projects is right up on the hill. I ain't even make it out of the projects. I went home, cashed my check, went to projects, got arrested, and went back to jail the
Damn.
same day. That's the type of addiction I had at this point. You know what I mean? And so anyway, and so for years I thought, the drugs were my problem, and actually let me back up. So because this is an important part of my story too, and I got to shout my homeboy out too. But so in 2005, right, some friends of mine um, were involved in a robbery that resulted in a murder, right, and they came to my house afterwards, and and I helped get rid of some evidence, relating to the crime. You know what I mean? I was a young kid, you know what I mean, and I ain't had nothing to do with that shit. But the type of circles I was moving in, that was an abnormal thing to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I got wrapped up in that type of case, and I can remember sitting down in jail, facing a lot of time for something I didn't have nothing to do with. You know what I mean? Other than getting rid of some evidence, like I didn't have nothing to do with killing nobody. I didn't have nothing to do with the planning of that shit. But I can remember sitting there like, how the fuck did this shit happen? You know what I'm saying? And and to really question it, like, cause up until that point, I had never even questioned what the fuck I was doing really. I mean, I did, but my disease had got so bad, I was just like committed to the street and to being a
Yeah.
criminal. And but I remember thinking like, man, I got to do something different, you know. And so I got out of jail finally out for that. I ended up beating that case, but my homeboy didn't beat it. And one dude got like 7 years, the other dude got 25 years. And then like there was a bunch of other people involved in it, and nobody else got any time. But anyway, so so all of that shit happens. I get out, I'm on bond, and I'm staying with my buddy Lita. When I was telling you about it, we were detention home cellmates. And he's a functional addict, by the way. Like back then, he was like a drug dealer, but that could get high as a bitch and not fuck everything up. And
Yeah.
I always wanted to like I used to want to be like him so goddamn bad. You know what I'm saying? But I never could. So anyway, I was living with him, and I met this girl. Right, she was dancing, and I was like, so up until this point, I thought that and I wasn't doing nothing but just us. I was selling weed and getting like taking pills now and then. But I met this girl, and me and her started doing powder together. And so when I met her, she was just doing powder. And by the time I was done with her, she was tricking and doing everything else. You know what I mean? And that's why I started getting emotional when I first got on here, because I think about stuff like that, and
Yeah.
the people that I've harmed in that way. You know. And so so anyway, when I was living with him, I met this girl. I ended up moving out. We was getting high together that whole year. And and I just think that my problem was that I didn't have enough money. And then I met her, and we had enough money. But no matter what she made, we spent. You
Yep.
know, and and I can remember, man, it got to the point to where like we would every morning we wake up, get out the hotel room if we ever slept, go hide our shit in the woods until she could do a trick to get the money to pay for the room. Then we would pay for the room. Then we would bring the stuff out of the woods and do it all over again every day. You know, and I can remember, and we didn't trust each other, right? Because I had my little hustles, but it wasn't much. You know what I mean? Because I didn't need to, because she was, you know what I mean? That's the type
Right.
of piece of shit I had become. You know what I mean? And um, and so the turning point for me was I was in a bathroom. We didn't trust each other at all at this point, and I didn't trust her enough, and she didn't trust me enough to give me any money or give me anything. And I wasn't gonna let her go turn her trick, because then she wouldn't come back with the money. So I would stay in the bathroom while she was doing the trick. And I remember the
Oh
dude came in there,
God.
and
How did that make
yeah,
you feel, dude? Like, how could you do?
dude,
How could I do? I don't. I mean, I don't mean how could you do that, but I mean with her being your girlfriend and like having to be in there and listening to that. Like, I could just
dude.
imagine how jealous and angry and uncomfortable and all that. Even though
Well,
because you were desperate and you needed the money, both of you guys did, so you were willing to do that and go through that in order to be able to get your drug, you know what I mean? So I understand that part, but I can't imagine what it felt like to like have her and be caring about her and her be doing that and you be in there like hiding out, you know?
yeah, dude. Look, so the dude came in there. He put the piece on the top of the toilet, and for me to use while he was doing it. And I could hear what was going on in there, man. And I can remember thinking to myself, man, because I loved this girl to the best that I could love somebody at that time. You know what I
Right.
mean? I really was like head over heels in love with this girl at that time, or so I thought. You know, and I remember thinking like, and like it was like that moment they talk about when like you paint yourself into this corner, and it's like the wall of denial just evaporates, and it's like, bro, I've literally compromised every moral I ever stood for. And I realized very clearly at that time that I was not, because I used to call myself a pimp, pimping her, right? Because pimps take care of their girl, I won't take care of shit. It's number one. But what really was happening, I had a moment of clarity where I realized the crack was pimping me and both of us, really, you know. And so, you know, I went to treatment. I went to the healing place, not treatment, but I went to the men's healing place here in Richmond, Virginia. It was an amazing place. And I wish I could tell you that I went there and I stayed and I got recovery. And that was the end of the story. But you know, I wasn't ready. And so, and her strip club was like 10 blocks away. So I would just go stay for 3 days and leave and I did that all summer. But I was introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous there. I was introduced to the 12 steps of recovery there. And at the end of that summer, I went back and I prayed on my knees one day because somebody suggested it, that I get on my knees and pray to whatever it was that He take away the desire to use long enough for me to learn something. And that's exactly what I did. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt like this sense of comfort where it was like, because I could never make it there more than a couple of days without the obsession coming back and me taking off. And it
Yeah.
was like for the first time that shit lifted. And so I stayed there for like 30 days or something like that. And I got a whole lot of information about recovery. And I started, it was like my toes wet, and I fell in love with it, man, because I was like identifying myself in it. And I was like, man, this is, because up until that point, I thought I was just fucked up. And then when I read in the book and I started hearing, I'm like, oh, like this is me, and I'm not the only one. And then I proceeded with my smart ass, right? That I was going to learn all the literature so I could talk. I thought that recovery was being able to talk real good at the
Yeah.
meeting. I didn't know you had to do some step work. I thought it was come in here, learn the literature, share real
Right. Right.
good.
I think a
And
lot of
so,
people think that and still do that. You know what I mean?
right. And so from that was in 2006. That's why when people ask me now, they say, how long you been in recovery? I say, I've been in recovery since 2006 because since then I've been trying. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Consistently trying. Now, in the beginning, I spent a lot of time in jail because when I would fuck up, I'd go right back to jail. Then I'd get out, fuck up again. And so we're about to hit a turning point. I know I'm long-winded, Nicole. I'm
You're
sorry. I'm
fine.
trying to hurry. Um, but there's a lot in my story, right? So in 2007, I was living at a recovery house. I got out of jail once again, and I was living at a recovery house, and I went to this NA function, right? And mm, mm, mm. Hold on.
Damn it. I get so emotional even when I see your eyes welling up. It makes me want to cry too. I
I
can
know.
see
I'm
it in your
sorry.
eyes. It's okay.
Stop. Um, so I was at this NA function, and this girl that I knew that I had made this connection with was like, "Look, I want you to come to this place because I want to introduce you to somebody." And when I went there, this was back in NA, man. Back then, like if you was white in NA in my area back then, you was like a country boy.
Yeah.
Wasn't no
Yeah.
white dude like me in
That's
there. You
how
know
it
what I'm
is
saying?
here too. That's how it is
Right. And
here too.
so, right, one of those city boys in the clique. And so I showed up, and I'll never forget this shit, man. Like I seen this girl from afar. She had on this baby fat jacket, and she had on the white Air Force Ones, and she looked good as a bitch. And I was like, man, who the fuck is that? And then like a couple minutes later, her friend, I seen the girl I was looking for, and she was like, Ryan, come here, I want to introduce you to somebody. She took me to that girl, and I was like, of course, I'm trying to act confident and shit. I'm like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? And I didn't even have a cell phone, so I like gave her my recovery. I was I was like, I think I said some slick shit. Anyway, I got her number, or I gave her my number to the recovery house and put it in her phone. And we talked a little bit that night. And I thought she was beautiful, man. And uh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
So I went back to the recovery house, and so like a couple of days went by, right? And then I happened to be at the recovery house one day, and I answered the phone, and it was her, and I was like, yo, I was like, hello, and she was like, this is Ashley, and I was like, yeah, and she was like, why you ain't even calling me back? I was like, I didn't get any messages, and so we ended up talking, man, and I was coming off that relationship with that girl, man, you know what I'm saying? And I was still really, before I met her, I was still in love with that girl, and the one that had been tricking and all that. And so when I met her, so anyway, we talked that day for like an hour on the phone, and we were like, look, let's meet at a meeting, and we clicked immediately, and so we went to this meeting called Rainbows Inn. It's an LGBTQ meeting here, and so we went there and we linked up, and I remember it was enjoyable, but it was really awkward because I was 27 and she was 20, I think at the time, or 21, and and her baby's daddy, she had one child, and her baby's daddy was in prison, and he was about to come home, and so anyway, so I went over there to hang out with her the first time, and you know, and so anyway, me and my wife, she was pregnant very quickly. You know what I'm saying? Is
That's
all
what
I'm gonna
I was
say.
saying.
And so very quickly, within like literally like 10 days, I remember she had a pregnancy test. So within us meeting, within a week, I had moved out of the recovery house and moved in with her, and she was pregnant. Within a
Yeah.
week, I'm not even exaggerating. It was a fucking week. You know what I mean? And but we didn't even know each other. So when I tell a story, I say we did things backwards. Like we met, we had sex, we had got pregnant, and then we decided we moved in together. Then we decided we want to get to know each other. And and so and of course, man, like at this point, like I'm starting to use more again, and because I was living in recovery house, but I moved in with her. Her dad was getting high. Me and him started getting high together, and then me and her kind of go our separate ways because I told her when the dude gets out, if I catch being with him, I'm not gonna play that shit. And so, of course, that's what happened. And so I just left, and then we went our separate ways. And I ended up getting locked up. And then like a couple months, and I figured like she would either have an abortion or she would tell him it was his, right? And so I got locked up. That was in like November. I got locked up in January, and then in March, I get a letter from her saying like I'm about to have a baby. I'm locked up also, and I got 3 years. And I'm like, damn. So I
Oh,
start trying to figure out who's going to take this baby. What's up, Jason? Who's going to take this baby? So I get my mama to take the baby, and and that took a lot. But that was the first time that I ever really had anything to live for, in my own mind. You know what I mean? It was like I was in jail, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do it right this time. And it's like all the stars were lining up because I got a program called the Diversion Center, and I never get programs because of my federal distribution charge. I don't qualify for most. But I got this program, and what it is like work release for DOC, and so you leave with a bunch of money. And so not only was I going to go there, but I was going to get out and have money to do it because I always had all these excuses of why I couldn't get on my feet because I ain't got no job, I ain't got no license, I ain't got no place to stay, I ain't got no money. And so that whole time I was locked up, I was really serious. I was in a program in jail. I had took all that stuff from the healing place and started applying it in my life in jail in the program. I was a leader, all that. And I go to the Diversion Center the whole time in there. I'm stacking my money. I'm like, I'm not gonna get high. I'm not gonna get high. I'm not gonna get high. And do you know I was locked up for 11 months? And my homeboy Lee, that lives over here, I told you about, he picked me up. Right, he picked me up in a brand new 750 Li. Right, and he had a bunch of drugs with him. And I was high before I left fucking Winchester, Virginia. You know what I'm saying? After being locked up that whole time and swearing to God I was not gonna get out, and I was gonna have, and I meant it, man. I fucking meant it.
oh yeah.
Every word of it.
I believe you
You
did.
know, and when I got out, man, like when I got home, look, this is a funny story too. I gave my mama some money, right? Because I knew I was gonna blow through my money because I was getting high, right? And so I gave my mom $1,500. I was like, Mom, take this money. Do not give it to me, no matter what. And she was like, okay. And so I left and went and kept getting high, and that only lasted like a week. So I done been out of jail 10 days total, right? I go to my mama's house. I call my mom. I said, I need that money. She's like, I ain't even been out 10 days. It was like 7 days when this happened. But I was like, I need that money. She's like, no, I ain't giving it to you. And I said, all right. And so I could catch a motherfucking cab over there or Uber or something. It wasn't Uber back then, it was a cab. So I got to ride over there and show up at her fucking door, knocking on the door. And she won't come to the door. So I called the goddamn police on my own, my mama, to make her give me my money. You know what I'm saying? And look, I didn't give a fuck if she went to jail. I just wanted my money. You know what I mean? But that's how crazy I was, and she had my daughter, man. You know what I
Oh
mean?
man, yeah.
And so, look, that's another thing. When I got out, and I remember when I got out of jail, out of that institution, I came home high, and I went into my house. I had this false belief that I was going to somehow walk in and my daughter was going to come running into my arms and know who I was and all this crazy shit, right? And she came in and didn't know who the fuck I was, and it broke my heart. And my self-centered ass is all up in my feelings at my mom and daddy like it's their fault. You know what I mean? Like crazy shit
Yeah.
like that. That's how crazy I was. And so anyway, I was going through all of that shit. I'm being really loud. Yeah. Sorry, my wife just came in here. Huh? You love me? I love you too, baby.
We're getting crunk.
I know. I'm sorry. So so anyway, man. Where the fuck was I at? See,
You
I'm
just
ADD.
you just called the cops on your mom and you were
Okay. So that was 7 days in. So she gave me that money. 3 days later, I was fucking broke again, and then I was living so 7 days out of getting out with $5,000, I was living in an abandoned house in DCU downtown, which is where the college is. I was living in an abandoned house under this place. I was too ashamed to ask anybody for help because I had just got out with all that money, and I didn't give none of my kids. And so I was living in a manor house, and all I would do would wake up. I would go to 7-Eleven and steal a bottle of Wild Irish Fruit and take it back to the abandoned jar, bucket, pass out, wake up, do it again. And then eventually I ended up passing out at 7-Eleven from dehydration, and I woke up in a detox at one of the hospitals here at Richmond Community Hospital. And so I'm just gonna frame this again, right? I was locked up and I didn't want to get high. And I knew I was not gonna get high. And within 10 days of getting out of jail, I was in a behavioral health place, like about to kill myself. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how my addiction progresses. It really is that fast. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. Um and so I think that time I ended up going to a recovery house, and some other stuff happened. I think I did a little bit more time, and I ended up going to the Salvation Army Rehabilitation Center for adults here in Richmond. And at this time, my wife was about to come home. She had like 6 months left for the sentence, and so I was getting myself together. And my mama had my daughter, and me and her reconnected when she was at the end of her sentence. We decided we was going to give it a shot and try to make it work. And so when she got out, like we linked back up. I was getting out of the Salvation Army, and dude, like I get blessed, man. Like we got custody of my daughter before I even ever got out of the Salvation Army. Like she was living with a friend of ours, and we got custody because my mama. That's a whole other part of my story. My mama's an addict. I ain't gonna go and tell her story, but she. Part of my story is when I get better, my mom gets worse because she's been codependent on me my whole life, and when I'm doing good, it's like she don't have nobody to focus on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, that's a whole nother story. And so we got my kids back. Got Riley back, and shit. Me and Ashley moved in together. And I think I heard you tell this in your story too. But I got a job. I got involved in NA. I had a network. I had a sponsor, and I got a job, dude, making $26 an hour. I had never even had a job making $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And I had a job making 26. I was doing good. I was in the Carpenters Union. I was working at Dominion Power here in Virginia, which is like one of the go-to jobs to have. That and Philip Morris, and man, life was really good. But guess what? Right, very quickly, right, all those things that got me to that place. I was going to meetings. I was involved with church. Like slowly, like those things started going away.
Yep.
And I started just working 70 hours a week and shit like that, right? And then I started becoming a slave to the things I had, as opposed to a steward over them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I ended up relapsing, man. And, and then for like another year and a half, me and Ashley, my wife, we weren't married yet. We were just engaged, but we had a place together. We had a child. We were living next door to my mother-in-law. Not a good idea, by the way. Pro tip number one: don't live next to your mother-in-law and active addiction. So anyway, we go through that, and that ended up. My wife, we got on maintenance. She does good on maintenance. We got on methadone. She takes methadone. She does well with it. I don't. I smoke crack, shoot dope, all that shit. I'm doing crazy. So I go through about a year and a half of that. That culminates with us losing our place. We had another child in the process. And by the way, remember she has another child by a previous relationship. That's also my daughter. And so we got 3 kids, and we done lost our place. She goes and moves in with her mom in the Eastern Shore. And I go to get back to treatment. Then I get locked up. I go back to treatment. And then Ashley comes back from the Eastern Shore to come try to save me again. And then we both end up getting locked up, and we lost everything. So this is the first time we had everything and lost it. I think the only time, actually. But so we lost everything, and I ended up in jail. And then like a week later, I was in jail, and like the deputy came and got me. It was like, Riggs, I think your fiance's in here. I was like, no, she ain't. Ain't no way. And damn sure she didn't get locked up. So she got locked up behind me, and we were both locked up together. And then when I got out, so I did 6 months. She did a year and a half on that sentence.
Wow.
We didn't do anything together. It was separate. I did my shit. She did hers. And so when we got out, when she was about to get out, all right, this is an important part of my story. When she was about to get out, I had got out after 6 months. I went to a recovery house. I got heavily involved in NA. I stayed clean all the way up until like 3 months before she was coming home, and I relapsed. And I used for 3 months. And then she was about to get out. This is how codependent and sick we were. And, we done got married in jail, by the way. While she was in jail, I wouldn't marry her because the only way we could we could visit each other at the institution she was going to as if we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went and got married. People said it wouldn't last. Yeah, yeah, whatever. We happily married now. So
Yeah.
anyway, so we went from oh yeah, so she's about to get out of jail, right? And I'm getting high. And this is how sick we was. She was gonna make her home plan come to my where I was staying at, knowing I was getting high. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yes.
Right? And so I was like, look, I gotta do something. You know what I mean? I gotta do something, or else we're gonna end up in the same shit we've always been in. Right? And so I went to detox and at a hospital here in Richmond called Tucker's. It's a behavioral health unit, right? And it's where everybody goes to say they want to kill themselves in detox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there, and this is whenever I used to tell my story in NA, this was like the catching point. But because up until that point, I hadn't realized this last time. But so I'm in there, right? They give me my phone, and they're like, "You need to get any numbers off your phone?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" So they give me my phone, and I cuff that bitch. And so I would keep my phone tucked, and then I would cut it on every night at 6:30, and she would call me every night. And I was really at the end of my rope, dude. Like at this point, I've been trying to get recovery for. This is in 2014, so I've been trying to get recovery for 8 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I'm just one of them people that this ain't gonna work for. And so I was crying to her on the phone one night, and I was like, baby, this is my exact words to her. I said, baby, I think I should just go ahead and overdose and kill myself, or die, because if I do that, then like I'll stop dragging y'all through this roller coaster of up and down for the rest of our lives. Because I had just gotten so hopeless, Nicole. It was really bad. And I was like, and y'all will mourn me for a couple months, but then you'll have all the memories, like the good memories to live off of, And that was like the most rational thought I could come up with at that time. And I wasn't saying it for pity either. Like I meant that shit, because instead of just them being their hopes smashed, I was smashing my own hopes too. I was just as baffled as anybody else. Whenever I would relapse, I would just be just as crushed as everybody, because I was like, how the fuck did this happen again? And so anyway, be quiet. Shh, my dogs. Hey, hush, hush. And so
I got little dogs, so I understand.
yeah. So, and this was right in a good part of the story too, little bastard. Hey, shut up. Hey, come get King, please. So anyway, so I told her all that. I said, look, I want to do this. I'm tired of the ups and downs. I don't want to drag y'all through this. And then she said, and I was expecting her to say something really nice. And she said, baby, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
She was like, if we deserve better, give us better. And then she said, baby, you'll never have to feel like this again. And you probably heard people say that. I've probably said it to people, but for whatever reason, man, when she said that shit to me that time, it was like the fucking sky parted, and it was like God kind of just spoke to me and was like, bro, like you are here again, right? As a culmination of all your decisions, and you've never given recovery an ounce, a percentage of the effort you gave your addiction. She's right. You don't never have to feel like this again, but it ain't gonna be easy. You got to put the work in. And it was like, that's what God was saying to me, man. And it lit this spark. It's the best way I can explain it inside my spirit. And it was like, I made my mind up right then. I was like, dude, like I'm gonna be the best recovering motherfucker that I ever could be. And I left out of there, and I went to a recovery house, and I started volunteering at recovery community organizations. I was working 2 jobs. I was going to school, like I was going at it. And then my wife had came home, and we decided to live separate. She went to an Oxford house. I went to a different recovery house. We lived separate for a year. Now listen, we had kids and everything. We were married and had kids, right? So like when people say like we was in a relationship before, yeah, so was we. Like, if we still made the decision to live separately, and I'm telling you, it was the best fucking thing we ever did for ourselves, man. I'm telling you. And so we lived separately for a year. We had to tote our kids around in Ubers. I can remember going to Maymont Park where the animals are at and carrying motherfucking car seats and having to bam the car seats in the woods and then come back and get them, shit like that, so we could take our kids to do stuff, man. But we were committed, man. And Ashley started getting heavy into recovery, because up until that point, she just used to follow me around in recovery. Yeah. But then she started getting her own network, and she started recovering. And then our relationship started recovering when we both started recovering individually, right? And man, like it just got better, dude. And then And so now I'm in the part where like I start getting involved in recovery, right? This is where like the magic happens, right? Like, so that was the moment right there that you were asking, like what happened? Like that's what happened, right? Like I made the decision that I was gonna go hard as a bitch for my recovery. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I did. And I proceeded to go out there and just get involved. Man, I started, meetings all the time. When I was at the recovery house, bro, I went to a meeting every day for like 18 months, no bullshit.
Yeah.
And we would go to the meeting, go to eat after the meeting. There was a big squad of us. It was, they say that shit like only a small percentage make it. Like 80% of the people I came through recovery with are still fucking in recovery because we was going after that shit like super hard. You know what I mean? And so anyway, and so in all of that stuff, I was lucky to start. I started volunteering at the Mcshin Foundation. I don't know if you ever heard of them before.
What is that?
But they're here on TikTok.
Okay.
They're a recovery community organization. They were one of the first nationally accredited, NADAC accredited recovery community organization. They've been a national leader for years. The Anonymous People, which is a movie that came out a long time ago. John Shinholzer, he's in that movie. He was my mentor. I love him with all my heart to this day. He's a great guy. And so yeah, I go to work. I'm volunteering for them to make videos to send inside the jail because we were all inside the jails looking at videos and shit, recovery videos. I was like, bro, we should do something and send them in so people can see us because they all know us in the jail.
Yeah.
We've been in and out there our whole life. Hey, can y'all please take them? Hey, can y'all please take the dogs back there, please? Maddie, take them back to mama's room, please. All right, thank you. Thank you, baby. I'm sorry. And so I'm volunteering up there, and but I was also.
You're fine, Ryan. You're fine. You know that's the same way.
Go, let's go. Come on, now, go, come on, Spot. Let's go. Come on, go, come on, Spot. Let's go. Come on, buddy. Come on, going back there. Good boy. All right. So yeah, so I worked at the Mcshin Foundation, and I'm volunteering there, and I'm also working for a guy doing side work and like construction work. And this guy's getting high, right? He's shooting coke 100 miles an hour, and I call my sponsor at this point, and I'm skipping over a lot because I've just been really long-winded. But anyway, this guy's getting high, and I tell my sponsor, I said, look, man. Like the guy's getting high. My sponsor said, well, like, are you going to put your recovery first? Or are you going to keep staying around this dude until you end up getting high too? And I was like, but yeah, man, but I got bills to pay. I got child support because I didn't have custody of my kids back yet. And I was like, I got all this stuff, man, and he was like, bro, God ain't let you down yet, man. Like, where's your faith at? And I had to really think about that. And up until that point, now mind you, man, at this point in my recovery, Nicole, I'm telling you, I was so serious about my recovery. Every fucking decision I made, I ran by somebody. I'm talking about down because I had made some crazy ass shit make sense to myself. So like I did not trust my thinking whatsoever. And I was really serious about my recovery. So I was really scared sometimes to make a decision. That doesn't mean I allow people to make decisions for me, but I would definitely seek counsel on every fucking decision I had to make. That's just how I was. And so I was asking this guy, aside from asking for counsel, right, I would actually take the fucking suggestions most of the time, right? And so which was a first for me. And so when he told me to quit, I did. That was on a Thursday. The following Monday, I got a call from John Shinholzer, the CEO of the Mcshin Foundation. And he said, hey, man, I need somebody to go into the Richmond City Jail. They're going to start a peer-led program in there. And I need somebody to go in there for 4 hours a day. Bro. And I was just like, it was like my dream job at that point in my life,
Yeah.
And like, had I never, like, I firmly believe that if I hadn't walked away from that job, that opportunity would have never been there, man. And so when I got that opportunity, what I did was I went in there and I started, taking all the stuff I had learned in all these programs I had been in, and I started doing group stuff with them. And nobody gave me no blueprint or nothing. I just started doing it with them. And I showed up early, right? I started doing the things that recovery taught me how to do. Like I showed up early. I stayed late. You know what I mean? Like I excelled. You know what I mean? Like I was helpful. If they needed me for anything, like I was doing that. I took the principles I learned in recovery and started applying them into my work life. And and it took off. And then like a month into that, John called me again and said, "Hey, I got the sheriff of Chesterfield County in my office right now. They want to start a program in the Chesterfield County Jail. Come to my office." So I went there, and we went literally from there that day into the Chesterfield County Jail into a program where we started what is now known the heroin, the helping addicts recover. It's something like that. I can't think what it's called now, but back then it was called the Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. Um, and that program ended up being an amazing program that to this day has helped thousands and thousands of addicts stay clean. And now has a women's and men's. It got to be such an amazing program that the state legislation set money aside to mimic it in other areas around here, right? And so what happened with that is it put me in a position too that I started using all that shit that I had been through, right, for purpose. And it wasn't because like, and look, that program, man, let me tell you something. Like that program might have did a lot for a lot of people, but primarily who it did for was for me.
Yeah.
Because when I went in there and then people were watching me, like when I started doing that shit, they had to hire a guy that had 30 days clean to drive me up there because I still didn't have a license. You know what I'm saying? So when I started doing it, I was driving a scooter, in fact, but it was too far away to drive a scooter. But when I started doing it, like I started like I had to practice what I was preaching to these guys. A lot of these guys knew me, man. Like they knew me from the street. They had done time together, and so like so they literally watched me for 18 months. I was doing that shit, and they watched me go from not having a vehicle or a license and living in a recovery house to me and my wife getting like our relationship getting real good, getting custody of my kids back, getting a 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, getting our first vehicle. They watched my just everything begin to progress. So like, dude, there was something special happening in that program. It still is, but it was really special in the beginning because all of us were connected and like, oh, I can't even explain. It was the best time of my life at that time, man. I was like, coming from where I had come from, the depths of desperation, man, to be able to walk into the front of a jail, not only to walk in the front, but to have the relationships I had with the staff there,
Yeah.
and like the sheriff calling me all the time, like, hey, bro, it was the awesomest shit that I ever did. And so, but like peer work don't pay, you know what I'm saying? And so, I wasn't making much money, but because I excelled and because I went above and beyond and because I made good relationships in the community, then I would continue to progress. And I went and started working at Virginia Center for Addiction Medicine. Now, this is where the medically assisted treatment comes into play. Because up until this point, I was a staunch 12-step guy. I was the guy that judged people on medically assisted treatment. You understand what I'm
Yeah, me
saying?
too.
But when I started working at the clinic, I started seeing a different side of it. And plus, I was progressing in my recovery where I was actually practicing the shit that we talk about. So I'm becoming more open-minded, more tolerant. I'm living this shit. I'm being, letting people like live and let live type shit, bro. Like, I just want to help you. What's your problem and how can I help? You know what I mean? Not do it like this, and and so, like I was exposed to medically assisted treatment working for people there. And so, but what happened was, like, it started putting me off from 12-step recovery because I'm like, yo, this ain't right, man. This is not fucking right, dude. You know what I mean? And so I would like voice it, and I didn't like the response I got. I can't tell you how many long Facebook threads on our like local recovery page there has been of me cursing and arguing with people about this shit. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Long
I know
before
what you
there was
mean.
ever a TikTok. And so, and this was before I was even on MAT. Well, I continued to progress in my career. I ended up, getting a degree level position at a different nonprofit after I left this boxing clinic. And but what happened for me this time, Nicole, was I had become like the face of recovery in a sense in my area. And I'm not saying that with ego. I'm saying that like
I
that's what
know
it
what you
was.
mean.
And
Like people had put you on a pedestal.
yeah, they did. And if I'm being honest, like I don't even know if I've ever admitted this, man, but like I allowed it to happen. That shit felt good, man. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Like it feels good to be, and this is what I found out. And I did not have this moment of realization until the other day when I was in a meeting, man. But what I found out is I threw myself so much into service that I lost my identity. I began to become exactly what everybody needed. And so and that's good to a certain degree, like to be a helper. But like what happens is when you relapse and they don't need you no more, who are you?
I know what you mean. There. My first sponsor, she had relapsed because she had gotten a she basically her program was service and nothing else, and she was just that's all she was ever doing, and so she called it
Thank you,
like
Angie.
basically just like doing service all the time and not doing the rest of the program, and so
Yeah,
the same thing happened to my old sponsor too.
yeah, man. And so, you know, um, so anyway, I guess let me back up a little bit, right? So, um, I just talked a little bit about the relapse, right? But what happened with that is, so I'm working. I become like the face of recovery, right? To some degree. I'm on the news, a couple things, and I'm doing a lot of advocacy work. And then plus because of my involvement, like at one point I had worked in every jail in our area. You know what I mean? And was going around DOC facilities speaking and stuff. And so um, like I got to the point to where I would go to meetings and I didn't feel like I could share about honestly about what was going on with me. And then because of all of the speaking engagements I was doing, I would tell people if you see me at a meeting, come say what's up. Like make contact with me. And but it was so overwhelming because I would go to meetings and it felt like everybody wanted to talk to me. And if I couldn't get to everybody, then I felt like I was doing somebody a disservice. Now a lot of this shit was just in my head, maybe,
Yeah,
but a lot of it was like I might have blew it out of proportion, but it was really like I can remember like seeing people cut an eye at me like this motherfucker thinks he's too good for me type shit,
yeah,
And it wasn't like that. So I started getting overwhelmed and anxiety started getting attached to meetings. And I'm also answering the phone at all hours of the night trying to help people all the time. And it's like recovery started to become a burden to me, man. And I start going to meetings late, leaving early to avoid the crowds because of my anxiety. And then right when all this is going on, and I'm really discontent in my job as well that I was in, and and when all this is happening, I had to go get some teeth pulled, and I got a fucking dry socket, right? And I was in the most fucking terrible amount of pain I've ever been in my life, and I was contemplating suicide at one point because of it, clean, and and I was just miserable. But I was terrified, definitely terrified to take narcotics. So I was like, I'm gonna take kratom because I knew that some people that had used it for pain and it worked good for them, and
yeah,
what didn't really form a habit. So I did it. I did it the right way. I told my sponsor, I told my network, I had accountability, and I got around it. But a couple of weeks later, I got hurt and I didn't tell nobody, and I went and took it. And then I started sneaking and taking it. And now I'm living a lie, right? Because I'm, doing all this stuff. And so then I'm in conflict in my spirit, right? And so then that's just feeding the addiction even more. Right now I'm doing shit in the dark. Now then I go on vacation to Cancun with my wife because that's how blessed we are from recovery, right? Because we got passports and shit. We go to Cancun and we go to the fucking St. Martin and we do all this stuff, right? And while I was there, I drank. And do you know within 30 minutes of drinking in Cancun, I was shooting cocaine in my hotel room? Like that's
damn,
how
yeah,
fast my disease goes. You know what I'm saying? I'm serious about that. And now I did that and don't nobody know about it. And then I go back and I'm working in the field. Now I'm wearing all this guilt. Right. So then I finally like I go to my boss. I'm like, look, I've been getting high. I've been taking kratom. I didn't tell him the whole truth, of course, but I said I've been doing this. I need to go detox. So I go detox, and then when I come back, they're like, "Look, we're not going to fire you, but you can't tell anybody about this, right?" And worst thing you can tell, I had it, and so I'm living with this lie. I can't share about it in meetings. I can't really tell anybody about it because people gossip so much in NA that
I
I'm afraid if
know.
I tell anybody, and it gets back to my boss, I'm gonna get fired, right? Um, so anyway, I end up with a full blown relapse, and I have in that full blown relapse for like 30 hours, I end up with a DUI, and I end up in the same jail that program was in that I started, and I wake up in detail. I don't even know how the fuck I got there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And literally, it was like I was a circus fucking show, sideshow animal. Like everybody was coming there looking because, oh, Ryan Riggs is fucking locked up. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, it was the most humiliating experience of my life by far. Um, and, uh, and I was just broken, man. And it was like I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I was like it was like all I knew was this like Mr. Recovery Man, and it was like, and then in everybody's eyes, in one day, I literally went from being this guy that everybody trusted with their fucking life to being somebody that nobody trusted to even like get out of their sight. You know what I mean? And it fucked me up tremendously. people in the recovery community, of course, because when you put yourself in that position, when you relapse, guess what? They say, I knew he was going to relapse with his arrogant ass, all that recovery shit he talking about, all this and that, right? And so a lot of the same people that I helped to save their life fucking dogged the shit out of me,
Yep.
right? And so, but see, my addiction, right, is so negative that I had a ton of support, Nicole. I had so much support, but I missed the support looking at the negative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's easy to do that. It's really easy to do that.
It really is.
Because it can feel it feels like one negative comment, it actually feels like 100 negative comments or 100 negative rumors. Because it's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like we have hundreds and thousands of positive comments on our TikToks, but which comment do we pick out to respond to? The fucking mean ass ones, you know?
Listen, there's a psychological phenomenon. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a like a negativity bias or something like that. But yeah, it's a fact. But fuck, where the fuck was I at the story? All right. So we're gonna do. All right, my relapse. Boom. I got it.
And you're.
I got it.
Okay.
So I got a resentment. I get out of jail. They make me go back to the recovery house. Okay. So I literally get out of jail. I get bonded out. I'm in court with the same. Look, the Commonwealth Attorney for Chesterfield had to take themselves off my case because I was working with them on a diversion program, and so there was a conflict of interest. So they had to recuse themselves. So I had a whole different prosecutor. The judge, you would have thought that I did no work in the community. They didn't give me no bond at first. Like they fucking didn't even want to let me out of jail for real. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? So anyway, I get out. I go to recovery house. I get a job. You know, I'm working. All this stuff's going on. But I gotta say this, man. And if she's watching, man, I'm sorry, but I gotta be honest, right? Because there's trauma surrounding this shit. The people I work with for 2 years. Right? Every day, day in and day out, 50 hours a week. I relapsed. It's been 2.5 years. I've only talked to one of them, the director of that organization. Not one of them reached out to me and asked me, was I okay? What could they do to help? None of that shit. You know what I mean? And so I got a lot of trauma surrounding that shit. I felt real abandoned, man, by a lot of people. And that shit caused me to really seclude from recovery. And so for the preceding 2 years after that, I took kind of the recovery that I knew about and I just tried to like practice it in my life. And I did okay. You know, I stayed clean and, you know, I started a business that was really successful and things were really good for a while. And, you know, and I go through all this different shit. And I'm trying to get to the point to where we're at now. And so that was in October of 2019. You know, from that point on, I started business. All this stuff goes on, flooring business, really successful. Boom, 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 boom. Now we get to July 15th. No, June 6th of this past year, of last year. I'm smoking weed. I'm selling weed. But I'm not really doing no other drugs. You know what I mean? I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy. You know, like I was doing all right. I was kind of practicing my own little form of recovery, some green recovery, I would call it. And life was okay. But I went to a concert and I drank alcohol. And within a very short period of time, I was doing coke and Xanax in the same night, and I'm off to the races on another run. And I don't really I have friends in the recovery community, but I'm not connected at all because I've been isolated so much, you know. And because I was selling weed, I had this a dude I had sold some weed to that gave me some fentanyl heroin, and I won't get high because I stayed on Suboxone. Oh, let me back up. So I got on Suboxone, by the way, that when I had all that shit with the jail and all that, because I knew when I got locked up, when I was getting out of jail, I knew that my risk for relapse was really high due to all the humiliation and everything I was dealing with. Yeah. So I was like, I need to get on Suboxone because if I relapse, like at least I won't fucking die. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I got on Suboxone, even though a lot of people in the recovery community and 12-step telling me not to. You ain't really got a habit. You've been locked up in jail for 10 days and da da da. But I got on and thank God I did, because for the next 2 years I had like 2 or 3 relapses in those two years, and I never got off the Suboxone. All I did was was uppers and shit and benzos. So I kept me alive long enough to find my fucking way back to recovery this time. Yeah. Right. So all them people, man, that was telling me that shit, I'm glad I didn't listen to you. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, and so it culminated with me in June. You know, I started using. And this time was the worst use I ever used ever. It got really bad really quick. Um, like I was doing shit that was completely out of character because I was taking these pressed Xanax that are going around here. That's basically fentanyl and Xanax, and one of them makes you black out. And so I was like doing shit like walking around with a machete and shit. It was just wild shit. I was out of my fucking mind, and really embarrassing stuff, man. And and I was scaring my kids, and I was exposing them because you got to think this is like during the time of COVID too, where it's like
Yeah.
still like the ass into COVID. And so I find the heroin in my pocket one day, and at this point I'm trying to get the treatment. I don't know if you know who Ryan Hampton is, but
Yeah.
Ryan Hampton was trying to get me in treatment up in New Jersey, and him and Joe Chickowitz, and then. And I kept trying to go get the flight, but I kept missing it because I was so high. I was shooting cocaine in the airport bathroom, right? So I would do like my last shot at the bathroom before I would go through TSA, and then I'd be able to geek the fuck out, and I would lose. Like I lost my passport and my ID the first day. The second time I went to try to catch it, the second day I lost my laptop, which was my form of communication. And so then when I went home that night, I was so miserable, man, because I was trying to get the treatment. But like I said, man, I've always kept trying. You know what I mean? But like when I'm in the midst of using, though, like I am a terrible person to be around. We had sent my kids to live with my mother-in-law, and they were away from here. And so I decided I was going to kill myself. And so I did all the heroin and the whole 8 ball of dope. And because I was on Suboxone, you know what I mean? But it's like, the fucked up thing is, it's like, and I hate to say this because it sounds terrible, man, but like, a little bit was out of spite. You know what I'm saying? It was like, I was hurting so bad. I was just like, man, like maybe they can feel what this fucking feels like. You know what I mean? It was just bad. And but it was also because I was also just tired of this shit. You know what I mean? Because now, remind you, like I don't experience recovery, like the fullness of recovery. You know what I mean? Like I done had like, and in all of that, I didn't hit on all that because it ain't about money, property, and prestige, right? But guess what? I'm a homeowner. I coach my daughter's sports teams to championships. I got multiple vehicles. I got 3 dogs. I got all these things that recovery has afforded me. You know what I mean? Um, and you know, recovery has done me well. And so at this point, again, I'm just at a spot where I just like I just want to fucking die. So I try to kill myself, and I wake up. My wife come home, found me overdosed in the floor, naked somehow. Why the fuck was I naked?
Why do we get naked? I used to do the same shit.
Who knows? I'm a little embarrassed too because one of my friends came over here and helped me get dressed. Who knows? But anyway, so they Narcan me, get me in the vehicle, and my wife drove me all the way up to New Jersey, man, with one hand on my stomach, making sure I was breathing. And I like, dude, the detox, if you ever got to go to detox, and this place in New Jersey called the Discovery Institute, man, the best motherfucking detox I ever been to, man. Like super cush, you know what I'm saying? Just nice as a bitch. But anyway, I get there and I wake up. I wake up in detox, man, and I know why I'm there, but I'm also like, last I think I remembered, I was trying to kill myself.
Yeah.
And like I remember, man, like doing the dope and being so fucking high too. I remember feeling really high and knowing that I was going to die, and I was at peace with that shit. You know what I'm saying? And I woke up in that detox, man, and there was a journal on my bedside that my wife had left me, and it was basically like saying like, we love you so much, and you done the strongest thing you could have possibly did for us. Just all this shit, and And man, dude, I cried for like this, but like ugly cried for like 4 hours straight because I was just like so broken. You know what I mean? It was like for them 2 years, I just been carrying around so much shit, for all these years. Since that relapse, I've been carrying around so much pain. And you know, but I was still angry, right? And of course, like, Like I'm like, man, I need to get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? And so I'm like trying to get my and like as much as I love my wife, like I spend every phone call like trying to get Vincent to let me come home, and we're arguing and
Yeah.
bickering. And right, one thing I didn't say was like in our past there's some trauma associated with infidelity in the beginning of our relationship, and like I know that, and I'm trying to like play that shit against her and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to, and I'm not doing nothing while I was up in treatment, but I was gonna make her think I was, so she would want me to come home. You
Yeah.
know, that shit's fucking sick, man. But like that's the type of shit I do, you know. And and I was in group and I was sharing about that shit. And I was telling them I was like, this I'm doing my wife like this. And because I ended up staying because when I was in detox I wanted to leave and come straight home. But like I had a moment of clarity when I was in there in that admissions office and he was like, look man, we got you scholarship to a really nice place. If Ryan done pulled some strings and we got you, man. You know. And I told my wife I won't stand. But something just came over me right then and I was just like, I'll do whatever y'all tell me to do. And I stayed and I went to that place I went to, which was Footprints to Recovery. And and when I went there, um, when I was in there, like the first couple of days, I was angry and pissed off, and telling them how their treatment should be run because I know, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because I had to let everybody know that I worked I worked in the field. I know what the fuck is going on. You know what I'm saying? Y'all really is all fucked up over here. It's crazy shit. And what I come to find out, Nicole, was that shit was the triangle of self-obsession, man. Fear, anger, and resentment, right? And I was fucking, I was a fear of being abandoned. I was afraid I wasn't going to have my needs met. And I was angry at the world around me. You know what I mean? And I was resentful too. So anyway, um, and so like I had this moment when I was there though, right? It was probably like the seventh or eighth day into the treatment center. And and we were leaving the NA meeting. And it was the first meeting I had been to since all that shit happened in 2 years. And it was like different faces, but the message was the same, man. And it was like, and I was on maintenance too at the time, but not that matters. But I'm just bringing that up because that's part of my story is maintenance and 12 steps. See, that's part of
Yeah.
my story, right? And y'all can't tell me I can't do that shit. Fuck y'all, I'm gonna do it anyway. So anyway, um, and so and so, but I heard a really good message at the meeting. But then when I'm leaving the meeting, like I was really energized. Like man, like all right, I'm feeling it again. Like I got that fire back a little bit. And also, man, I'm really grateful to be alive because I didn't really want to kill myself. You know what I mean? But I ain't
Yeah.
got that bad. So I got this newfound zest for life, and I'm riding back in the van, and the song called "Reckless Love" by Corey Asbury came on. It's a spiritual song. It's a Christ-centered song, but I didn't know it was a Christian song. And all I heard was the part where it's like no mountain you won't climb up. And it's like talking about how far somebody will go, and it's like for your love. And I thought it was a love song, and I was thinking about my wife and how much I love her, man, and how much she has just rode for me, man. Boy, I had put her through some shit, man. If you only knew, you know what I mean? I've been physical with her. You know what I'm saying? Like I had made her like try to make her think it's her fault and all types of shit. Now I've been really shitty to my wife, and she was just riding with me, man.
That's what we do when we love our men. My husband, he
Yo,
relapsed too, and I went through a lot of shit with him, so I understand. Because she loves you. She
bro,
loves you.
my wife, I got the best wife in the world. I'm telling you. Um,
You're very, very fortunate. You know that.
I am. Um, but man, look. So a story about treatment, right?
Yeah.
So up until this point, me and her are communicating terribly, right? I'm talking about we. As much as I love her, she loved me. We can't communicate because we codependent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At this point, she done got sick as me too. It's just in a different way. You know what I mean? And so thank you, Stacy. And so we were arguing on the phone one day, and then like it was almost like a God or something intervened, and we like hung up on each other, and then we both texted each other how we felt without like, and then I got her message and I read it and I internalized it and I responded in a loving, caring way, and we got to a solution. Because I got to tell you, man, for many years we were codependent, but for those years, those 5 or 6 years, I was clean and everything was going good. Man, we were like the hot cut, like go-to couple for like our relationship was really good. And we very rarely argued. I'm talking about we had an amazing relationship. So to go from that back to being codependent again, it's kind of like going from being clean to relapsing and
Yeah.
being hopeless. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same thing. And so, and so like I remember like we had got in that text message thread, we had got to the solution, and then she sent me a message. She said, "I think we just beat the disease," and I was like, "I think we did,"
Oh, that's
and it was like,
awesome.
I know, man. And so like we started building on that, and it was like, all right, like we won because we're a team. But what happened was just like when you were on a sports team as a kid, y'all start losing, y'all start bickering between each other.
Yep.
It's like that in real life. And like we had been losing, so we bickering, and then it's like, okay, we win and let's go. And I love you too, Ashley. I mean, Stacy. And and so anyway, and so then I ended up staying in treatment for the time I was there. I come home. I start volunteering back at the recovery community organization that I'm at now. And I got showed a lot of love when I came home. Some my friends at the Mcshin Foundation offered me a position back with like 30 days clean driving. They were like, "Look, you can drive." And then I'm blessed that a lot of my friends that I came through this process with are now owners and operators of recovery community organizations, right? And they all know my abilities, and they knew that I struggled with. Because see, what I've come to find out, Nicole, is that recovery or addiction has as much to do with purpose as anything, right? And so when a person don't have a purpose, man, like what kind of hope is there? You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so when these guys gave me another opportunity to get back into the recovery field, I went up there and I took a hold of it. But I got to tell you, it was difficult because this time recovery won't shiny no more, Nicole. It was not. It wasn't like it was the first time, where it was like, oh, it's just so amazing. It wasn't like that. It was hard. You know what I mean? I struggled emotionally, mentally. I was really struggling with depression. And then, not to mention, because of my beautiful, amazing, lovely wife, I didn't lose everything I had. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, now I got old timer responsibilities with newcomer emotions. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck? And I'm working in recovery. So I'm like, oh. So I'm a hot mess at work. I'm snapping on people at work, which I still can do today. You know what I mean? And me and my wife are going through it, but in the beginning, but like, guess what? Like, I know where the solution is. I start going back to meetings again, right? I reconnect with the recovery community. I go to individual therapy,
Yep.
right? I go to marriage counseling. I go to family counseling, right? I do all types of, I listen to all types of things and read books and do meditation, and I do types of physical activities. My recovery today is so complex, Nicole. Like, it don't fit in no box,
Yeah.
right? I use like so many different pathways because a wise man told me, right? This is like a little, like a metaphor, right? He said, look, like you can give me a hammer and a nail and I can build a house. But like they got drills and nail guns, like all
Yeah.
types of shit
So
you
many
can
other
use. You know what I'm
tools.
saying? Yeah, like why the fuck would you do? You'd be an idiot to do that. You know what I mean? So, like today, I try to pick up all the tools that are necessary. Whatever. And how will I know if something's necessary for me? I won't unless I try it.
Right.
Right. So a lot of these people out here, I'm not saying for anybody that's abstinent to go try medically assisted treatment, okay? But I'm saying there's other pathways, man, that if you don't have experience in, don't judge it because you don't know anything about it.
Right.
And one thing I've become a huge advocate for, and why you guys see me on here doing this stuff, is because like the things I do with my TikTok is because I have enough experience in recovery where they're not gonna run me off, right? If anything,
That's
like
how I
they
feel
a lot of
too.
people, yeah,
That's
people
how I
fuck with
feel.
me in the recovery community. Like they might talk shit about me behind closed doors, but like Ryan always on TikTok talking about us and this and that, whatever. But they love me and I love them. You know what I mean? And we have a relationship. So they're not gonna tell me. But my fear is that, like, what about the people that are where I was at 10 years ago that are just coming in that are like trying to figure out if this is gonna work for them? Guess what? I know it can work for them because it's working for me. And
Yeah.
I want medically assisted treatment. And it works for many other people I know. So like, give them a fucking chance. You know what I mean? But like, cause I didn't let them tell me that. But a newcomer, you can tell them just about anything. You
Yep.
know, and they'll listen. So anyway, man. So that's where it got me in here, man. Today, man. My life, Nicole, is so blessed. I got. Oh yeah. So in the midst of all that, my oldest child, about 2 years ago, asked me to adopt her. Right. So I got three daughters. She was my daughter long before I adopted her. But I say that to say that that's what recovery will do for you. You know what I mean? It will make it to where people will be attracted to you. You know what I mean? They will want you in their life, man. You will no longer be They would look to you for protection. I can remember looking in my children's eyes and seeing nothing but fear.
Yep.
And today it's not like that. When my daughter got something going on, guess who she called? Daddy. When she wants to be protected, she calls me. You know what I mean? And that's all because of recovery. Everything I have in my life, Nicole, everything that's worth anything. You see this shit right here? Right? It's a big ass house. I got nice stuff outside. I got a good exterior, right? But more importantly, man, I have a great heart. I'm compassionate. I love people. I really do. Right? This shit you see on TikTok is not me pretending. Right?
Yeah.
I really do. I love people. I really have a genuine heart. Everything I have in my life today, interior, exterior, um, you know,
For TikTok hat.
whatever, right, is a direct result. It has the stamp of recovery on it, man. You know what I mean? And when I got here, I was broke, homeless, helpless, bankrupt. I literally did not know how to be a man. Like I
Yeah.
did not know how to be responsible. I did not know how to be a father. Every single thing that I've learned from my personal life to my relationship to my career is a direct result of the principles of recovery, the universal principles of recovery, not the principles that are found in one fellowship. I'm talking about kindness, love, compassion, empathy, selfless service, all of these things, man. And the list goes on and on. I just try to practice that shit to the best of my ability on a daily basis. I am not perfect, right? I do have a little bit of a temper at times. And I got the things I'm dealing with. But guess what? I'm aware of it. I'm working on it and I'm trying to get better. And like I know today that the things that I have went through, I glazed over a lot of stories, but I got a lot of them stories like where God showed up in my life, and gave me some clarity or moved a mountain for me, or whatever. And the best is yet to come because I got some things going on in my life right now, Nicole. Because right now I'm back lined up with my purpose, right?
Yep.
Like I'm back on fire for recovery again. And when I'm on fire, man, I get blessed. I'm telling you. So I got some things in the works that are going on. A lot of it is just a result of just me sticking and staying and continuing to persevere and not give up, because that's about the only thing I've done perfectly in this process is I never stopped trying, man. I never did, and I never will. You know, and so I hope that there was a message in that for somebody.
You did
Um,
amazing. God, you got me so freaking emotional. You are just like
I'm sorry.
me. We're both very emotional.
I am.
You
Thank
know?
you.
Oh, you did
I
so
am.
good. You did so good. I'm up, I'm going to upload this on YouTube, on my Instagram, on my Facebook. Like, it's going to be everywhere.
Oh God, I shouldn't have been crying like that then.
No,
I can't help it, man.
that's awesome. I mean,
I,
I'm the same way, and it shows that you really, really
thank you.
care, and it really is serious to you. You know what I'm saying?
It is, and I'm sorry I went on for way like so long, but it's like that wasn't even like that was about a half of it. So
Right.
like I tried to keep it condensed, but um, I really was doing that honestly, and I gotta say thank you for giving me the space to do it because I needed to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
this was therapeutic for me as well. Like I needed to have the space to get all of that shit out of me, man. So
What
thank
I
you for
want to
that.
do, because I know we've been on here for almost like 2 hours or so, why don't we do another one like tomorrow, if you want to do one tomorrow night, where people can ask questions. If you guys want to like come up and ask questions, and me and Ryan can just like talk back and forth about
Thank you.
medication assisted treatment and recovery and the 12 steps and all that kind of stuff. And if you guys want to come up here, y'all can come up here too. Like, that would be cool if you want to. I don't know if let me look at my schedule either tomorrow or Saturday. If you're not
Listen,
busy.
yeah, me and you communicate all the time. So you just
Yeah.
text me, set it up. I got you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And whatever you need from me, I'm here, man.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate you so much.
much.
I'm so grateful for you, man. I hope you know that.
I feel the same way about you. I love you so much, man, and I'm so fucking proud of you. I feel like we know each other in real life, but like we've already like we're in the same state, but we're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's that energy, man. I believe in this shit too. Like that's one thing I've been introduced to it through recovery is like the energy of whatever that universal energy of love and whatever that is. I call it my higher power, but like
Yeah.
we recognize that together. And I think that's what it is. So thank you again, Nicole. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I'm going to let you go so that way you can go be with your family. And I'm going to text you after this. I'm going to go upload this to YouTube, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you
right.
everybody for watching and tuning in. I appreciate y'all.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye. You did
Love you
great.
too.
You guys, Ryan, you did so freaking good. Like, I'm literally could not stop crying. Every time I would see your little eyes well up, I couldn't help it. I love when people are sharing their stories and they're like touched. You know, they're so passionate about how far they've come, about being grateful for their family, like the love that he has for his wife and the fact that she's been through all this stuff with him. It just makes me I love that, you know, like he seriously really is a walking embodiment of what recovery is about. And if you guys are ever struggling, if y'all are struggling, I know you could reach out to Ryan and he would help you 100% without even asking, not even blinking an eye. And if you're in Virginia, I know you could for sure get a hold of him and probably see him out and about. But I want you guys to please go over there and follow Ryan Riggs Recovery. If you guys are not already following him, please go give him a follow, okay? I'm going to download this video and put it up on my YouTube, my Facebook, and my Instagram. I'm going to look at my calendar and see if I can get Ryan on either tomorrow night or Saturday night to where we can just talk back and forth about MAT and recovery and our families and all kinds of stuff like that. Thank you, all of you guys that stuck around and listened to his whole story. It meant a lot to both of us. I know it meant a lot to him, and it means a lot to me too. And I will see you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Love you guys.